Hello students, hope you are doing well. So in today's class we will just see the accessibility mechanism in inheritance, okay, or you can say the visibility modes in C++. So before starting the lecture, I just want to say that kindly view this lecture, okay, till the end, because if you just leave this lecture in between, then it will not benefit you or you will be confused, okay. So I am making this lecture as simple as, okay, so that all of you can understand it in a simple way. So as you all know that visibility modes, okay, or you can say the access specifiers, okay. So in our previous lectures we have used very important visibility modes, that is the private and the public, okay. So these two visibility modes we are using, okay, from the starting of our session when we were dealing the concept of classes and objects, okay. So I just recall once again. So private is the access specifier in which, okay, all the data members or all the member functions, or I can just say the members, if they are declared in private mode, then they can only be accessible within the class, okay. They can be accessible within the class itself, okay. If you try to access them, so they are accessible within the scope of the class, or they can be accessed by the member functions of the class that we will declare as public, okay, indirectly. So we can't use the private members of a class directly, okay. So there is no direct access, there is no direct access, okay, to the private members of a class. So the, you can say, the public specifiers or the public mode of inheritance is a mode in which, okay, the access is, okay, the access is open to all, okay, the access is open to all. So it means, okay, you can access the public members within the class, okay, you can access the public members outside the class, okay. Outside the class means you can use the public members with the help of the objects directly, you can invoke, okay, you can access it with the help of the objects also. So these two types of visibility modes or access specifiers we have just, okay, we have just seen, and we know that what it, okay, means. But the actual definition of visibility, okay, the actual definition of visibility is, okay, in context to inheritance, okay. So the term visibility, okay, when we study the term visibility, then we are just focusing on inheritance, okay. So this visibility is correlated to inheritance, okay. Now, okay, coming to the topic, so there are basically three modes, okay, three visibility modes in inheritance, okay. That is private, protected, and public, okay. These are the three basic visibility modes in inheritance. The definition of the visibility modes, okay, or the access specifiers, okay, will remain the same, okay. So private means that the accessibility is only within the scope, okay, the accessibility is only within the scope of a class, it cannot be accessed directly outside the class. The definition of public means that the visibility or the access mechanism is within the class and it can be accessed outside the class directly, okay. There is a new term, okay, that is protected, that we'll see, okay. So the protected is only useful in inheritance, okay. So if we are working with a single class, okay, and if there is no inheritance concept, then we are not going to use this protected type of concept, okay, because there is no use, okay. So protected means, okay, when you want, okay, the features of your existing class, okay, to be accessible to the derived class, but it is not accessible to the outside world, okay. So protected means that the features or the properties or the functions, okay, the features, okay, or the properties or the functions. Okay, so these all are the members, I can say. Okay, when you want that the members of the existing class, when you want that the members of your existing class, that is the base class. Okay, so the base class is the existing class. So when you want that the members of your base class must be accessible to the derived class but not to the outside world. Okay, so the derived class can access the derived class can access okay the protected members, but but they are not accessible. Okay, but they are not accessible to outside world. What does it mean? To the outside world. Okay, so outside world means you cannot access the protected members directly with the object. Okay, outside world means directly. Okay, we can't access protected members with the object. Okay, with the object. So now it is clear. Okay, now it is clear. So I'll just create a table for you. Okay, that will be easy for you to understand that how this particular mechanism is working in inheritance. Okay, so the table is like this. Okay, it contains certain entities like within the class. Okay, this is derived class and this is outside class. This is outside class or outside world, you can say. Okay, and this is the specifier. These are the specifiers. So if I just say private, okay, if I just take the example of private specifier, then the private specifier can be accessed only within the class. Okay, it can be accessed only within the class. Okay, the private specifier cannot be accessed in the derived class. Okay, so in a derived class, okay, if I want that my derived class, okay, wants to access, okay, the private specifiers or the private members, okay, of the base class, then they are not accessible. Okay, so in derived class the private members are not accessible, and also outside the class we cannot access the private members. Okay, so this is clear that the private members, okay, if the members are declared as private, okay, so they can be accessed only within the class. They cannot be accessed in any of the derived classes, and also they cannot be accessed outside the class, or you can say they cannot be accessed with the object directly. Okay, if the specifiers, okay, if the members are declared as protected, okay, so if there is a protected specifier, then within the class, okay, then within the class you can access the protected members. Okay, so these protected members can be accessed within the class. These protected members can be accessed in the derived class, okay, that will be derived, that will be inherited from the existing class, but these protected members cannot be accessed outside the class. So again, you cannot access the protected members with the object directly. Okay, so these you have to remember. The third is public. Okay, the third is public, and it is very simple, and this public is widely used. Okay, so the third is public. So now the public can be accessed within the class because, okay, it is public. It can be accessed in the derived class, okay, and it can be accessed outside the class. Okay, you can directly access with the help of objects if the data members are public or the members are public. Okay, so this table is very important. Okay, if you understand this table, then okay, you will be facing no problem in solving the problems of inheritance. Okay, you can solve the problems easily if you understand these concepts. Okay, the private members, these are the rules basically. These are the rules when you will be constructing the program. Then you have to remember these rules, that if you declare any variable as private in the base class, okay, then these private variables can only be accessible within the base class only. Okay, they cannot be accessed in the derived class, or they cannot be accessed in outside any class. Okay, outside the class, or they cannot be accessed directly with the object. If you are creating any members protected in your base class, then they can be very well accessed within the class. These protected members are also accessible in the derived class, but they cannot be accessed with the object, okay, directly. If the members are public, then they can be easily accessible within the class. They can be accessed, okay, by the derived class, and they can be accessed outside the class. Okay, so this is important. Next is the visibility mode, that how one class is viewing the features of the other class. Okay, so I want to say that if this is a class, for example, for example, if this is a class, so this class can be categorized into three. Okay, there can be private, there can be private, there can be protected, okay, there can be protected, and there can be public. These three types of specifiers are available in any of the existing class. Okay, so we can use any type of, you can say, specifiers in our class. So so this is, you can say, this is view 1. This is view 1. View 1 means any class can have different views. Any class have different views. So if this is the only class, then there is only one view for this particular class, that is view 1. Okay, view 1 means this class can only be working on these particular members of its own class itself. Okay, but if we have a second class, if we have a second class, for example, and again this second class can be categorized as private, protected, and public, for example. Then the view is changed. Now this particular class has two views. This particular class has two views. It means now it is having its own view. It means it can access, it can see its own members. Also it can see the members of its existing class, and that is why there comes the concept of visibility mode. Visibility mode means how this class, how the derived class is seeing the properties or the features or the members of its existing class. That is known as the visibility view or the visibility mode. So if the mode of inheritance is private, if the mode of inheritance is private, that means that now the base class will inherit its features to its child class in a private mode. So now the visibility of the derived class will be different. Now how this derived class will see its parent class members, this is known as the private mode. This is the private mode or the private visibility mode, that how this derived class, so this is the derived class, for example. So this is the derived class and this is the parent class, or the base class. So how this derived class will view or will see okay, the features of its parent class. So in order to classify this, we have three different modes. Okay, first is private mode. So in all these three different modes, okay, the visibility will be different. The visibility will change. Okay, the access mechanism will change. So here we are talking of access mechanism now. Okay, so here we are talking of access mechanism. Okay, or the visibility. How the access mechanism of one class, okay, is depending upon the access mechanism of the second class. Okay, how the access mechanism of the parent class, okay, is changed, okay, in derived class. Okay, so this is something visibility mode. So if the visibility mode is private, then these private, okay, this private is inaccessible, so we are not going to, okay, change this. The protected members of the base class, if the visibility mode is private, okay, remember, if the visibility mode is private, so the protected members of the base class will become the private members of the derived class. Okay, it means now the derived class will see the protected members of its existing class as a private member in itself. Okay, so for the derived class, the protected members of the existing class will behave as a private member. Okay, and the public members of the base class will also become the private members of the derived class when the mode of inheritance is private. So this you have to remember. Okay, second is if the mode of inheritance is, okay, if the mode of inheritance is, so this is also private, this is also protected, for example, and this is also public. So now if the mode of inheritance is protected, so now this is protected mode. Okay, so if the mode is protected, then, okay, the private will not change. Okay, they are not accessible in the derived class, we have seen. Now what will happen, the protected, so I am just representing it with the help of a dotted line. Okay, now the protected members of the base class will become the protected members of the derived class, and also, okay, and also the public members of the base class will become the protected members of the derived class. Okay, so the visibility is changing. So now the visibility has changed. Okay, if you compare private and protected, so the visibility has been changed. The protected members and the public members of the private, okay, has been treated as private in the derived class, but if the mode of inheritance is protected, so the protected will become protected and the public will become protected in the derived class. Okay, and the third and very important is, if the visibility mode is public. If the visibility mode is public, so here also there are private, protected, okay, and this is public. So if the visibility mode is public, then what will happen? So if the visibility mode is public, then, okay, so I am just representing it with the help of this particular line. Okay, so this is something like this. Okay, so this is, I have just made it. So this is, let us suppose, public mode. So if the visibility mode is public, then we are not changing the private, okay, because it is not accessible. Then the protected will become protected and the public will become public. Okay, so the protected members, okay, so I will just representing it like a spiral line. Okay, so the protected members of the base class will become the protected member for the derived class. Okay, and the public members, okay, and the public members of the base class will become the public members, okay, of the derived class. Okay, so this is the visibility mode, or this is the access mechanism, how the derived class is seeing the features or the members of its existing class in these different modes. Okay, so here you can see the comparison. Okay, in private mode, okay, protected and public both are becoming private. In a protected mode, protected and public both are becoming protected, and in public mode, protected is protected and public is public in the derived class. So if you understand these concepts, okay, if you understand these, okay, two figures, okay, this is, you can say, figure 1, and this is, you can say, a pictorial representation, okay, or this is a figure 2. So if you understand these two figures, then you can solve any problem of inheritance. Okay, you can solve any program of inheritance, okay, depending upon the access mechanism, whatever you are taking, whatever access mode you are taking. And it is up to the user. Okay, it is up to the user. He can take any mode he wants. Okay, there is no compulsion that you have to take only a private, public, or protected. Okay, it is up to the requirement of the program. I have also, okay, specified this in my earlier class, that it is up to the requirement of the program that which particular mode of inheritance you have to choose. It is up to the programmer. Okay, it is, you can say, the programmer is independent, okay, of choosing any of these modes. But if the programmer is choosing these modes, then he has to religiously, okay, focus on the concepts, okay, that how these modes will change the access mechanism of the members of the existing class or the base class. So I hope this is clear to you. Thanks.